Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are digging into the secret behind some of history's most incredible victories. And it's not what you think. It's not just about having more soldiers or better weapons. It's about a very specific kind of intelligence, a strategic mind that can literally bend the battlefield to its will.
You know, it's a question that has defined history forever. We love to think that victory comes down to brute force or some kind of technological edge. But the real game changer? Well, it's usually something you can't even see. It's in the head of a brilliant commander. Or even better, it's built into the DNA of an entire organization.
These moments weren't just wins for courage or firepower. They were, at their core, victories in the mind. The common thread here is this unique kind of intelligence, a strategic brain that thinks on every single level, from psychology all the way to logistics. So let's dive in and start with one of the all-time greats.
All right, we're kicking things off with a true masterclass in psychological warfare from, you guessed it, Napoleon Bonaparte. At the Battle of Austerlitz, he wasn't just directing troops, he was literally scripting his enemies' mistakes.
Okay, so get this. He was seriously outnumbered. We're talking about 60,000 of his troops against a combined force of over 80,000 allies. But instead of trying to hide that weakness, he put it on display. He made his army look like it was about to fall apart, and even gave up a super important piece of high ground, the Pratzen Heights, basically daring the enemy to come get him.
And this right here, this was Napoleon's real secret weapon. It wasn't a cannon, it was his organization. His army was made of these flexible, almost independent units called corps that could move fast and come together in a flash. The Allied army, it was like a slow, lumbering giant, totally predictable and bogged down. That agility, that was the key that let his genius shine on the battlefield.
And this quote just says it all, doesn't it? He watched as the Allies took the bait, abandoning their strong position in the center to go crush his supposedly weak right side. They were walking straight into his trap. And the second their center was exposed, boom! Napoleon unleashed his hidden forces, stormed the heights, and completely shattered their army. It was a perfect blend of mind games and lightning-fast execution.
But here's the thing about individual genius. It can be fragile. What if you could bottle it? What if you could build an entire organization that thinks like a genius? Well, for that, we have to go to Prussia and meet a man named Helmuth von Moltke.
Moltke looked at new tech like the railway and didn't just see a way to move stuff. He saw a weapon. By planning everything down to the last detail, Prussia could get its entire army ready and to the front lines in just 25 days. Their main rival, Austria, it took them 45. That's almost twice as long. He turned speed itself into a weapon.
But what he did next was even more revolutionary. He knew that in modern war, no single person can control everything. So he came up with this idea called Auftragstaktik. The basic principle? Tell your commanders what you want to achieve, but let them figure out how to do it. This created amazing flexibility. But it wasn't chaos, and that's because every single officer went through the same intense training, which meant they all operated from the same strategic playbook. He basically built a distributed collective brain for his army.
Now, what happens when you take a brilliant system and you feed it game-changing information? Well, for that story, we head to the Pacific, to the Battle of Midway. This is where secrets and signals became the ultimate weapon.
Over in Hawaii, this incredible team of codebreakers, led by a guy named Joseph Rochefort, had managed to crack parts of the Japanese naval code. They started hearing chatter about a huge attack on a target called AF. Rochefort was absolutely convinced AF was Midway Island, but his bosses back in Washington, they weren't so sure. He needed proof, and he needed it fast.
So here's the puzzle, right? How do you get your enemy to tell you their secret plan without them having any idea they're doing it? Well, Rochefort's team came up with an unbelievably clever trap. Acting on Rochefort's orders, the base at Midway sent out a fake, unencrypted radio message for anyone to hear, saying their machine for making fresh water was broken. And wouldn't you know it, a little while later, the codebreakers intercepted a Japanese message. And what did it say? AF is short on water. The trap had worked perfectly.
And this is the crucial moment. Admiral Nimitz, armed with that solid piece of intelligence, made an incredibly gutsy call. He took a calculated risk, trusting his team on the ground over the doubters in Washington. He bet everything on Rochefort's intelligence, and he moved his aircraft carriers into the perfect position to ambush the Japanese fleet. He turned their trap right back on them.
Okay,
So we've looked at Napoleon's deception, Moltke's brilliant systems, and that incredible intelligence win at Midway. On the surface, they all seem pretty different, right? So, how do they all connect? What's the unifying theory here?
Well, the source material gives us this really powerful way to think about it, the 5-layer model of the strategic brain. The big idea is that true strategic genius isn't just one thing. It's about mastering a whole stack of skills, from the tactics on the ground and the operations of a campaign, all the way up to grand strategy, intelligence, and finally, the Holy Grail, institutionalizing it, building that genius into the very fabric of your organization so it lasts.
And check this out. This chart shows exactly how our examples fit the model. See? Napoleon was a master of those first 3 layers: tactics, operations, and strategy. Moltke's real gift was way up at layer 5, institutionalization. He built a winning machine. And Midway? That victory was forged by perfectly syncing layer 4, intelligence, with layer 2, operations. The point is, no one person has to master all 5, but the winning team does.
So who cares? Why does any of this history matter to us right now? Because this isn't just a blueprint for winning wars. It's a timeless formula for being effective in pretty much any complex situation you can think of.
The big takeaways here are crystal clear. It's not enough to just have good information. You have to connect that information to action. The winner is almost always the side that handles uncertainty better than its opponent. And this is huge. A system built to learn and adapt will, over the long haul, always beat an organization that's just relying on one smart person. Because systems don't have bad days.
And you can actually boil all these lessons down into one really powerful equation. Take a look. Strategic effectiveness is what you get when you multiply your intelligence by your ability to adapt and then divide all of that by your own organizational rigidity. It shows that the slower and more bureaucratic you are, the less all your smarts and adaptability even matter. A lot of the time, the biggest enemy is your own system.
Which really just leaves us with one final thought. This blueprint for success on the battlefield is actually a blueprint for success anywhere. And it makes you ask some hard questions. In our own world, where are our blind spots? Where are we too rigid to change? And how can we start building an organization, or even just a mindset, that can learn, adapt, and act with the kind of clarity that defines a strategic genius?